guys, this is a recording to help you with the homework 20B. I'm going to go kind of fast. If you need to stop and rewind, that would be great. Just go to the problem you're having issues with, and hopefully this will help. All right, number one, which of the following sets of ordered pairs represents a function? Well, with a function, we know that every input, your x value, can only have one output. So in this case, if you look at answer B, every input, we've got our domain, which would be our 7, 5, 3, and 1, has a unique output, 3, 4, 5, and 6, okay? If you looked at A, the input of -2 has an output of 1, and it also -2 has an output of -1. So that violates the rule of a function. Same here with C. An input of 4 gives us 2. An input of 4 gives us -2. So it couldn't be C. And then with D, 6 as an input has an output of 3. 6 as an input has an output of -2. So that wouldn't work. Okay. Number 2. These ordered pairs follow a pattern. If 15y is in the pattern, what is the value of y? So for these, I'm going to set up a table here of my inputs and my outputs. My inputs would be -3, 0, 3, and 6. My outputs would be 7, 5, 3, and 1. Looking at my pattern here, looking at my x, it looks as though I'm adding 3 to each one of these. So I'm going to add 3 to get 9, 12, and then 15. Okay, and then the y values, it looks like I'm subtracting 2. So if I have 1 and I subtract 2, I'm going to get -1. 12, I'd get -3. And 15, I'd have -5. So it looks like an input of 15 would give me an output of -5. All right, number 3, if g of x is equal to -3/5 x plus 7, what is g of 10? That means my input is 10. So I'm going to let x be equal to 10. All right, to have x equal to 10, I'm just going to plug into my function -3/5 times 10 plus 7. Well, -3/5 times 10, remember multiplying fractions, I just go straight across here. Okay, I'm going to get -30/5, which is equal to -6. So -6 plus 7 is going to be equal to +1. Okay, moving on. Number 4, whoops, too far. Which of the following is not a graph of a function? Okay, so we're going to use our vertical line test, and I'm going to draw a vertical line on J, and look, I went through more than one point, so I know that J is not a function. All the other ones, there's no place where you could go through more than one point, so these are all F, G, and H are all functions. Number 5 says which table most likely matches the graph. So we're just looking at ordered pairs here. All right, if I looked at A, I've got 0, -2, I've got -2, -1. We're just seeing which table matches the graph. So I'm going to start with A. 0 has an input and an output of -2. If I started at -2, I'd have an output of -1, and then +2 would give me an output of -3. Looks like it's already A, so I don't even have to check the other ones. Okay, number 6, using the same relationship between x and y as in the table, what is the value of y when x is 5? Okay, this one was a little bit tricky, all right? The rule for number 6 is actually y is equal to 2x minus 3. If you could figure that out, that was great, okay? But I'm going to give it to you for purposes of this help session. So y is equal to 2x minus 3. If you notice, if I plugged in a -3, I would get -6 minus 3, which would give me my output of -9. If I plugged in 3, I would have 6 minus 3, which would give me an output of 3. 0 minus 3 gives me an output of -3. Okay, -2 minus 3 would be -5. So it works for the table. Now we want to figure out the value of y when x is 5. So all we do is plug in 5 for x, and when we do that, we get 10 minus 3, which is 7. Okay, so number 7, what is the domain of the set of ordered pairs? Okay, this is really vocabulary, making sure you understand the difference between domain and range. Now, I gave you a little hint for our little Dr. XY, the algebra guy. All right, domain is our x values. So all I have to do is look at my x values. This is your x and this is your y. My set of x values would just be the -7, -3, 1, and 4. So your answer would be B. All right, we're using a function machine. What is the output when 15 is the input? So input is our x. So let x be equal to 15. And we'll say 3 times 15 minus 7. We've got 45 minus 7 gives us an answer of 38. Output would be 38. Number 9, what is the range of the function in the graph? Okay, the range, again, our range now is our y values. So this is our y-axis and this is our x. So we're trying to figure out all the values that could be possible outputs. Now, if you notice, this is actually parabola, and actually it comes down to this point, the vertex down, it's called a vertex. And the lowest point that it can get to is actually y is equal to negative 3. Can be any value greater than or equal to negative 3. So that would be our B value, our B option. Okay, number 10, now we want to know what the domain is. The domain is our x values. So this is a line, and it's going to continue on and on forever and ever. That means our x value could be anything. So it's going to be all real numbers. All right, number 11, that the table shows the relationship between the cost in dollars of a phone plan and the number T of minutes in the phone call lasts. Which equation algebraically represents this data? I would expect you to go through each one of these and just plug in your inputs, your T's, and see which one would work, okay? In this case, it's actually going to be C. So let's try it. If I took C is equal to 0.25 plus 0.04 times 5, okay, I'm going to get 0.25 plus 0.2, okay, and that's going to be 0.45. And I'm going to do that for all of the options. So C is equal to 0.25 plus 0.04 times 10. If I did that, I'd have 0.25 plus 0.4, that would give me 0.65. So that one works, okay? And if you went ahead and did 15 and 20, you'll see that they both work as well. So that one, you just really want to use your calculator and verify each of the equations. All right, number 12, which value of x makes the function f of x equals 8x minus 24 equal to 0? So we want to figure out what value of x makes this 0. So we're finding the 0 of a function. So if I did that, I'm going to put 0 here, and I'm just going to solve for x. To do that, I'm going to add my 24 to both sides. And when I do that, I get 24 is equal to 8x, and then I divide by my 8. So x is actually going to be equal to 3. Okay, number 13. Which of the following tables does not represent a function? Okay, so we're going to look again at our inputs. So remember, with inputs, you can't have two different outputs. So these are all, A, they're all unique, so that should be fine. B, I've got all unique inputs, that should be fine. C, I've got all unique inputs, that should be fine. It doesn't matter what the outputs are there. Okay, here, I've got 16 with an output of -4 and 16 with an output of 4. So right there, that tells me D is not a function. Okay, you can't have two different outputs. All right, which of the value of x makes the function x squared plus 6x minus 7 equal to 0? Now this one is a little tricky because there's actually two answers. This is a parabola, and it's actually going to cross the x-axis at two different points. But what we're going to do is just plug in each one of these values. So if I started with the first one, I'd have a -1 squared plus 6 times -1 minus 7. I would get 1 minus 6 minus 7. Does that equal 0? No. So it's not going to be the first one. All right, if I plugged in 1, I'd get 1 squared, okay, plus 6 minus 7 equals 0. Let's see, that would be 1 plus 6 minus 7. Does that equal 0? Yes, it does. So one of the answers is G. All right, and I'm going to give you the second answer. It's actually going to be J, because if I put in -7 and I square it, plus 6 times -7 minus 7, I'm going to get 49 minus 42 minus 7, and that is going to be equal to 0. So the two possible answers for number 14 are G and J. All right, number 15, which of the following represents the graph of a function? Oh, this one is easy, vertical line test. So this fails a vertical line test. It's not a function. This is not a function. This is not a function. The only one that's a function is C. Okay, 16. What is the value of f of 3 when f of x is equal to 2x plus 3? So all that means is we're going to let x be 3. Okay, when we do that, we get 2 times 3 plus 3, which is 6 plus 3, which is going to be 9. 17 says, what is the range of the function? That means we're looking for our output, or our y, or our g of x. when the domain is 12, 15, and 18. So we're just going to plug each one of these in and then get our output values. 1/3 times 12 minus 5 is 12/3, which is 4. 4 minus 5 is -1. Now it looks like that's already the answer, but let's check the other two. 1/3 times 15 minus 5 would be 5 minus 5, which is 0. So there's my second one. And then 1/3 times 18 minus 5 would give me 6 minus 5, which is 1. Okay, remember with fractions, you just go straight across too. 18, we're going to put that over 1, 18/3, and that's how I get my 6. Okay, number 18. What is the value of g of -2 when g of x is equal to 12 minus x? So we're just going to let x be equal to -2. All right, so with that, I've got 12 minus a -2, which is 12 plus 2, which is going to give me 14. Okay, so my answer is F. Okay, now I've got some review problems here. So these are our literal equations. We're going to solve for t. I'm going to subtract 3n from both sides. I get -t is equal to s minus 3n, and then I'm going to divide by -1. T is going to be equal to -s plus 3n. Okay, not sure why my screen is blinking like that. All right, moving on, number 2, we're going to solve for y. So to solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by 2wz. 2wz. Okay, no, not 2wz. Oops, let me erase that. Okay. All right, so we're going to divide both sides. We're solving for y, so we're going to divide both sides by 2xz. 2xz. All right, when we do that, the 2's cancel out, the x's cancel out, the z's cancel out. We're left with y is equal to w divided by 2xz. Okay. I'm going to stop here and continue in a little bit.